My name is Julia Bennett. I live in Portland, Maine, and I always believed that when the worst happens, family shows up. That belief stayed with me through every hard winter, every quiet sacrifice, every holiday where I was seated at the edge of the table. But when my 8-year-old daughter Lily collapsed on our living room rug, whispering that her heart was beating too fast, and the doctor later said the words, emergency surgery, the first call I made was the last one I should have. We'd rushed her to Windermere Medical Center. It was one of those evenings where the air outside still held the last of March's chill, and the hospital lights felt too bright, too sterile. Ryan had driven, barely speaking. I held Lily in the back seat, her fingers clutched around mine. By the time we reached the ER, her breath was shallow. Her skin felt like ice. We were ushered into tests, x-rays, scans, blood draws. We waited in silence under buzzing fluorescents while I rubbed the back of Lily's hand and counted each slow rise and fall of her chest. 3 hours later, the doctor returned holding a thick manila folder. His expression was calm, practiced. His voice was measured. "There's an abnormal mass in Lily's left lung," he said. "We believe it's benign, but it's pressing against her airway. That's what's causing the rapid breathing and collapse." My mouth had gone dry. I tried to ask what that meant, but no sound came out. He continued, "We need to operate within 72 hours. The surgery is urgent. If we delay, there's a risk of permanent damage to her respiratory system." I remember the ringing in my ears more than I remember his exact words. I remember Lily's tiny form in the hospital bed beside me, a pink blanket pulled up to her chin. I remember the way Ryan reached for my hand but didn't speak. Then the doctor said the number. $98,000. That includes the operation, the post-surgical recovery and pediatric intensive care. I'm sorry, but without insurance, that's our estimate. I didn't move. We had some savings, yes, but not that much. We had enough to live month to month, enough for normal life. But this wasn't normal. This was the kind of emergency you never think will actually land on your doorstep, the kind you assume someone else will face. My hands shook as I stepped into the hallway, and pulled out my phone. I scrolled past names, friends, former coworkers until I landed on the one I never expected to need again. "Mom?" It rang once, twice. Then Julia, "It's late, is everything okay?" Her voice was smooth, careful. I gripped the phone tighter. "Lily's in the hospital," I said. "They found a mass in her lung. She needs surgery, Mom. They have to operate in the next 3 days. A pause. Then, "Oh dear, that's awful." "We don't have enough," I said, and I hated how my voice cracked. "We've already tried everything. I'm not asking for all of it, just some help. We'll pay you back, I promise." The silence on the other end didn't feel like shock. It felt like calculation. "Well," she said, "finally, this is really unfortunate timing." "What do you mean?" "Your father and I are in the middle of planning Caleb's engagement weekend. You know that? The venue's already paid for, the catering, the live band, and everything's locked in. We can't cancel now." I blinked, staring at the cold gray tiles under my feet. "I'm not asking you to cancel a party. I said I'm asking you to help save your granddaughter's life." Her voice sharpened slightly. "Julia, you've always been dramatic when things get difficult. I'm very sorry Lily is unwell. But you've made your choices. You chose independence. You wanted space from the family. You've always been the quiet one. Remember? Strong, capable." I couldn't breathe. "So you won't help?" "I can't," she said. "And even if I could, it would send the wrong message. We've already committed so much to Caleb's wedding. How would it look?" I stood there in the hallway, my back against the wall, the phone still pressed to my ear even after the call ended. My hand ached from how tightly I was holding it. Inside the room, Lily stirred slightly. The nurse adjusted her IV and stepped out again. I sat back beside my daughter, brushing a piece of hair from her cheek. Her lashes fluttered. She didn't know that I had just tried everything. Didn't know that the only people I had left to ask had said no. And in that sterile humming room, I whispered aloud to myself, steady and final. If they could turn away from Lily, then I have nothing left to lose. There was always a difference. Even before I had the words to name it, I could feel it in the room. I could feel it when I was 7 and got a perfect score on my spelling test and held it up to show my mother, and she nodded distractedly, murmuring, "Good. That's what we expect from you." 3 days later, Caleb brought home a B in social studies, and the dining table lit up with a full congratulatory dinner. They ordered in from his favorite pizza place. My father made a toast. My mother even lit candles. I remember sitting at the end of the table, quiet, chewing slowly, and wondering how a B could be worth more than an A. Caleb was 2 years younger, but always treated like he was owed more. Not because he asked, he didn't need to. Praise found him naturally. Attention found him effortlessly. The more I tried, the more invisible I became. By the time I turned 12, I stopped expecting my parents to come to school plays or science fairs. I learned how to take the bus home on my own. I learned how to frame my own certificates and hang them in my room. When Caleb made the basketball team in 9th grade, they bought him a new pair of shoes and posted the news on Facebook when I won a statewide art competition. My mother said, "That's nice, honey. Just don't let it distract you from your real responsibilities." They said I was steady, that I was low maintenance. I began to understand what those words really meant. They didn't mean I was easy to love. They meant I didn't ask for much, and so I got even less. I graduated early, worked 2 jobs through college, landed a job at a small but promising design firm. When I told them over dinner one night, my father raised his eyebrows and asked interior design, like furniture shopping. That same month, Caleb switched majors for the 3rd time. They threw him a congratulations brunch. When Ryan and I got married, it was a simple ceremony, just close friends and a rented space by the waterfront. We didn't want much, only warmth and truth. My parents gave us a card with a check for $100 and left before dessert. When Caleb got engaged, they offered him $20,000 for a venue deposit. At first, I told myself I was overreacting, that maybe it was just timing or circumstance or 100 other polite excuses, but the pattern held. When Lily was born, I thought maybe something would shift. Maybe having a granddaughter would change the way they saw me. Maybe they would start seeing me at all. But even that was too much to hope for. On Lily's 2nd birthday, I invited them to the park. We kept it small: cupcakes, balloons, a few kids from the neighborhood. They arrived an hour late. My mother stayed for 15 minutes and left with the excuse of an early meeting. 2 weeks later, she posted a full album from Caleb's dog's birthday party: frosted bone-shaped cake, custom balloons, matching sweaters. "Family is everything," the caption read. I remember reading that post while sitting in Lily's room folding tiny socks and wondering when exactly I had stopped counting as part of the family. Even now, years later, Lily brings home drawings, math tests, little cardboard dioramas. I pin them on the fridge. I send photos. Sometimes my mother responds with a thumbs-up emoji. Once, when Lily won a reading contest at school, I called my mom, hoping it might land differently. "She's always been bright," I said, "just like Ryan." There was a pause. Then my mother said lightly, "She's lovely, but I do think she's a bit emotionally distant, probably from being away from her grandparents so much." I went silent. "Don't you think she added as if it was just a passing thought?" I ended the call not long after I stared at Lily's bookshelf, the one she and Ryan built together, covered in stickers and pencil scribbles. Then I sat on the floor and cried for the first time in months. Not because of the insult, but because Lily had heard it too. Later that night, as I tucked her in, she whispered, "Mom, am I hard to love?" I didn't answer right away. I just pulled her close, wrapped her small hand inside mine, and kissed her hair. "You're the easiest love I've ever known," I whispered, but I couldn't shake the truth. I had brought her into a family where being overlooked wasn't the exception. It was the rule. The driveway was already packed when I arrived. Black cars lined the stone path like a showroom display, their polished surfaces reflecting the soft glow of hanging lights. Music drifted from the backyard. Smooth jazz and laughter layered over clinking glasses. I stepped out of Ryan's car and pulled my coat tight, gripping the folder of Lily's medical records like it might vanish if I let go. The house was decorated top to bottom. White orchids trailed down the staircase railings. A banner hung over the archway. "Congratulations, Caleb and Naomi." Through the large front windows, I could see servers balancing trays of champagne flutes, guests in formal wear posing for photos, and my mother laughing with a hand pressed gently to her chest. She hadn't picked up my calls since that night in the hospital. Neither had my father. I had waited, I had hoped, but Lily's surgery was now just days away, and I was out of time. I stepped inside my boots, landing softly on the marble entryway. No one greeted me. A few heads turned. Some looked confused. Others looked through me. I walked toward the living room past a bar where a woman in red sequins glanced at me, then down at my worn coat. I passed a group of men talking about investment properties and a young woman showing off a diamond ring. The scent of roasted lamb and vanilla candles clung to the air. My mother stood near the fireplace, speaking animatedly to an older couple. She was dressed in silver silk, a crystal bracelet glittering at her wrist. I crossed the room, stopping a foot from her. She turned, and her smile faltered. "Julia," she said, as if I'd appeared uninvited at a stranger's wedding. "Can I speak with you just 5 minutes?" She hesitated, glanced at the guests beside her. "Now can it wait?" "No," I said, "it can't." She pressed her lips into a line, then nodded stiffly and led me toward the hallway near the kitchen. The walls here were quieter, but the music still pulsed faintly through the floors. I opened the folder, my fingers shaking. Lily needs surgery. The mass in her lung. It's urgent. The doctor said we have 72 hours. We've raised what we can, but we're still short. My mother looked at the papers without really seeing them. I pressed on. "Please, I'm not asking for everything. Just a portion. We'll pay you back. I'll sign anything, but we've run out of options." She exhaled slowly. "Julia, this really isn't the time." "Not the time." My voice caught "She's your granddaughter." "This is Caleb's engagement weekend," she said softly but firmly. "All of our guests are here, the caterers, the photographer. You're putting me in an impossible position." I stared at her, the music now distant and distorted like it was echoing through water. She glanced back toward the party. "We've already spent so much. The tent, the dress, the band. I wish you'd told me sooner." "I did, you didn't answer." She looked back at me, her voice sharper now. "You've always been difficult, Julia. Always wanting help at the worst times." Before I could reply, I heard my father's voice behind me. "What's going on?" He approached, drink in hand, his tie-loosened brows creased with irritation. I turned to him. "I need help. Lily needs help." He sighed. "Julia, this really isn't the place." "There is no place," I said louder than I meant to. "You never return my calls. You ignore every message. What was I supposed to do? Wait until it's too late?" He looked over at my mother, then back at me. "Don't embarrass us." From behind him, I heard Caleb's voice, light and amused. "What's all this?" He stepped forward, arms out like he was about to give a speech. "Let me guess," he said, grinning. "You're short on money and thought you'd turn my engagement into a charity drive." I stared at him. "You think this is about you," I said. He shrugged, then took a sip of champagne. "Everything's about someone in this family needing something. Except today." "Caleb, I'm not asking you." "No, but you're making a scene." He looked at my father. "Can you handle this?" My father didn't answer. I turned back to my mother. Her hands were folded now tight against her dress. "She's 8 years old," I said. "She hasn't slept through the night in 2 weeks. She can barely breathe." "You've made your life hard, Julia," my mother said quietly, "but don't try to drag the rest of us into it." I didn't speak. I simply closed the folder, tucking it gently back under my arm. No one moved. I turned, walked past the bar, past the stairs, past the couple whispering near the wine table. Outside, the air was colder than I remembered. I stepped into it anyway. My hands were still shaking, but my spine was straight, my face calm. They could have helped, they chose not to. And now I knew exactly who they were. The next morning, Ryan carried the sofa out onto the front lawn. It was the first big item to go. We'd posted it the night before with 4 pictures and a polite, hopeful description. Gently used, comfortable, clean lines. It had been the first piece of furniture we bought together, neutral gray soft in the corners. The kind of thing that had made our tiny apartment feel more grown up than we were at the time. A woman in sunglasses arrived 20 minutes early, circling it twice before saying, "Would you take 60?" It was listed for 120. Ryan looked at me. I nodded. "Sure," he said. We carried it into the back of her SUV while Lily watched from the window, her face pale under her knit beanie. She didn't ask questions. That afternoon, we started listing everything else. Ryan's pickup truck, the one we drove across Vermont after our wedding, the one Lily had called Big Blue even though it was clearly black. We posted it under must sell urgently. It went to a college kid for a little undermarket, but we didn't push back. My design monitor, our dining table, the coffee machine Ryan swore made better espresso than the cafes downtown. The next day, a man knocked on the door asking about the bookshelf in Lily's room. He was blunt, already calculating how it would fit in the back of his van. I asked for 10 extra minutes. He waited outside while I helped Lily remove the last of her drawings, the taped-up birthday card, the sticker that said, "Read more, worry less." She didn't cry. She just pulled the last book down and said softly, "We'll get a new one someday, right?" Of course, I said, even though I wasn't sure I believed it. At night, after Lily was asleep, Ryan and I sat in the half-lit kitchen with a notepad and a calculator. Each time we reached a new total, we crossed it out and began again. We sold the printer, the rug, my studio lamp. One couple drove 2 hours to pick up our mattress, then asked if we had a TV stand, too. We didn't, but I offered them a set of shelves and a floor lamp for free. They smiled and said thank you. No one asked why we were selling, but some looked at us like they already knew. A woman buying our blender asked if we were moving. Ryan said yes, then added nothing else. After they left, we sat on the edge of Lily's now bare bed, the quiet settling like dust around us. There was no anger, no dramatics, just the slow, deliberate dismantling of a life we had built carefully, one small thing at a time. I packed up the last box from the living room while Ryan scrubbed the walls clean of nail holes and thumbtack marks. The silence in the apartment was full, not empty, not yet. When I pulled the drawer from the side table where I kept fabric samples and client cards, I found Lily's drawing, the one she made 2 months ago. It showed the three of us holding hands under a giant red sun. The sky was purple. The grass was blue. We all had smiles. I tucked it into my coat pocket. By the third day, the apartment looked like it was waiting to be repainted. The windows bare, the counters wiped clean. Every room echoed a little. We counted the cash that night carefully, quietly, stacks of bills folded inside a bakery box. It came to $29,000 and some change. Ryan wrote the number down. I didn't say anything. Instead, I walked into Lily's room and stood for a moment in the doorway. Her tiny desk was gone. Her lamp, too. All that remained was a blanket on the floor and the pale outline of where her bookshelf used to be. She was already asleep, one arm curled under her cheek. I sat beside her, gently brushing her hair back, and let my eyes fall closed for just a moment. We weren't there yet, but we were moving inch by inch. And tomorrow we'd start again. The house felt emptier than usual. Ryan opened the door for me, but neither of us said much. We knew the quiet inside wasn't just from fewer things on the walls. It was something deeper, a kind of pause. George and Elaine had lived in that house for almost 30 years. The same red brick, the same wind chime near the porch that clinked gently every time you stepped in or out. It always smelled faintly of lemon wood polish and something warm cooking. But tonight the air smelled like boxes. Elaine was in the kitchen pouring tea. Peppermint her favorite. She used to make it every winter when Ryan was little, sometimes with a cinnamon stick if she wanted to be fancy. 2 mugs already waited on the counter. "Sit," she said gently, nodding toward the small dining table. "It's still warm." We sat. George joined us a minute later. No fanfare, no long speeches, just a small stack of papers held carefully in his hand. Ryan cleared his throat. "You said you wanted to talk." George nodded. "We're selling the house." My chest tightened. "You... what?" Elaine placed one hand over mine. "We met with the buyer yesterday. It's a clean deal. They'll move in by the end of the month." I couldn't speak. George slid the papers forward. "We've already signed the transfer. All the funds are wired." This, he tapped the page, gently goes to Lily. The number was there, clear as day. Enough, more than enough. I stared at it, then at them, then back at the teacup in front of me, suddenly unable to look anyone in the eye. We can't let you do this, I whispered. You're not letting us, Elaine said softly. We chose to. But your home. George gave a small shrug. It's just a roof and walls. We've had 30 good years in it. That's more than most. We'll rent a smaller place. It's fine. I shook my head, barely able to hold the words. You didn't ask for anything, not one condition, not even repayment. Elaine smiled. We're not your parents, Julia. That's probably why. My breath caught. She continued, You've always been good to us, and Lily's ours too, blood or not. This is what family does. Ryan reached for her hand. She squeezed it like she'd been waiting years to do just that. I didn't cry at first. I sat still, hands folded tightly in my lap, willing myself to stay composed, but something in me cracked not from pain, but from the unfamiliar feeling of being seen. Elaine noticed. She passed me a folded napkin without a word. I looked down at the check again. My hands trembled slightly as I took it, not because of the amount, but because of what it represented. Quiet love, no strings, no shame, no speeches about expectations or optics or image. Just love. I stood and walked toward Elaine, unsure what to say. She didn't wait. She opened her arms and I folded into them like a child who hadn't been held in years. I don't know how to thank you, I whispered. You don't need to, she said. Just save that little girl. When we left an hour later, the wind had picked up. The porch light swayed gently above us. Ryan helped me into the car, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like we were drowning. As he started the engine, I looked back at the front window Elaine had drawn the curtain closed. But the porch light stayed on. I never planned to speak publicly. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about recognition. But when a producer from Voices of Resilience reached out after hearing what Ryan's parents had done to save Lily, something in me paused. The show wasn't flashy. It didn't air in prime time, but it had a quiet audience. People who understood stories about sacrifice, about silence, about drawing the line. I sat on a gray couch under soft lighting. No studio audience, just one camera. The host leaned in with patient eyes. We'd love to hear your story, she said. Not names, not accusations, just the truth in your words. And so I told it. I spoke about Lily, about the hospital room, the price tag on a child's life, the rejection that came wrapped in pearl earrings and polished phrases like wrong timing and it wouldn't look right. I told them what it felt like to walk into a mansion with my daughter's medical records in hand and be treated like a stain on white linen. I didn't name anyone. But I didn't have to. The interview aired online 3 days later. It was only 10 minutes long, just long enough for people to watch on their lunch breaks or during their subway rides. But it spread quickly. Within a week, the comment section was flooded. My parents did the same when I needed help. My child is a survivor too. You're stronger than you know who turns their back on a sick granddaughter. Then the digging began. People connected the dots. The business name I didn't say aloud. Bennett & Co. Furnishings was recognizable to locals. The family mansion in Falmouth once pictured in glossy mailers became a point of quiet shame. An anonymous account posted a clipped moment from the interview with the caption, Parents spend $300K on a wedding. Say no to their dying granddaughter. Daughter rises anyway. It went viral in under 24 hours. The next morning, I woke up to a message from a former classmate. Julia, your family's store just got hit with hundreds of one-star reviews. I checked the site. They weren't exaggerated. Dozens of people wrote the same sentiment in different ways. I'll never shop here again. If this is how they treat their own, imagine how they treat customers. There's nothing elegant about cruelty. My brother Caleb's social media accounts went private within 2 days. Naomi, his fiancée, removed every photo of their engagement party and changed her relationship status to single. An old acquaintance sent me a screenshot. Naomi's mother confronted my parents. They didn't deny anything. Naomi moved out the next morning. The final blow came when a news blog picked it up. They didn't name us, but the headline said, "Enough, Portland family faces backlash after daughter reveals refusal to help grandchild during medical emergency." That was all it took. Local press followed. A well-known supplier dropped the store quietly. 2 former employees left. Their cousin, who worked in PR, issued a bland statement about respecting all family decisions that no one believed. I didn't smile. I didn't share it. I didn't say I told you so. I simply sat in my studio, the one I'd rebuilt from scratch, and watched the story play again on my laptop screen, the moment where I looked into the camera and said calmly, "I once begged my family to help save my daughter's life. They declined. And in that moment, I realized I could never be that kind of parent. I had to become the person Lily could count on because no one else would." I watched that line land again. And this time, I didn't feel anger. I felt weight lift. Not because justice had been served, but because I no longer had to carry the silence. The email arrived at 3:42 p.m. No subject line, just a single line of text. "We're in trouble. Please, can we talk, Mom?" I stared at it for a long time before closing my laptop. 2 days later, they arrived at my office. I'd reserved the third-floor conference room at Harbor Nest Interior's glass walls, tall windows, no corners to hide in. When they entered, I didn't stand. My mother wore a navy coat I recognized from years ago. Her hair was tied tightly at the back as if restraint could still pass for dignity. My father looked smaller than I remembered. His suit didn't fit the way it used to. A folder stuck out awkwardly from under his arm. Neither of them smiled. They sat across from me at the long walnut table I'd already set the briefcase down in the center. Black leather closed clean. My voice was steady. "How much do you need?" My mother cleared her throat. "The bank is threatening foreclosure. The business loan defaulted. The accountant said, we have weeks, maybe days. If we don't pay, we'll lose everything." I nodded once, and the amount. 200,000, my father said barely above a whisper. I opened the case, stacks of bills bound tight. Exactly what they asked for. It wasn't charity, it was a transaction. My father's eyes locked on the money. My mother looked relieved, as if she'd forgotten who she was speaking to. "Thank you," she said, breathless. "You have no idea. This means everything." I raised one hand. "I'm not finished." They looked up. "You'll take this money," I said, "but it comes with one condition." My mother blinked. "Of course, anything." I leaned back in my chair. "After this meeting, you will never contact me again. No calls, no visits, no holidays, no emergencies, not even condolences." My father's expression broke for the first time, Julia. "No," I said, "you made your choice. You made it the night I stood in your house and begged you to help your granddaughter." My mother sat back stunned. I continued, "I'm not doing this because I forgive you. I'm doing this because I won't let anyone sleep on the street, not even the ones who turned their backs on me." Silence filled the room. Not awkward, not emotional, just cold and final. My mother's voice cracked. "You're serious?" "I'm finished being the daughter you only remember when things fall apart." She opened her mouth to speak, then closed it again. My father looked away. Neither of them reached for the case. Not yet. I stood and pushed the briefcase across the table. "You'll find everything inside unmarked counted. This is the last time we'll see each other." For a moment, I thought my mother might cry, but instead, she reached for the handle and pulled the case toward her. My father followed her lead. They stood. No hugs. No farewells. They walked out slowly, like people leaving a place they knew they'd never return to. I waited until the door clicked shut. Then I exhaled. Outside the window, the city moved as usual, cars turning people walking wind, moving through the alleyways. Inside, it was still. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel guilt. I felt quiet. Just quiet. The house sat on a gentle rise just south of town where the trees opened wide and the air carried the scent of pine even in early spring. The porch was exactly as I remembered it, sloped painted white with a single wind chime still clinging to the far corner. Elaine and George hadn't seen it in over a year. They'd sold it without hesitation, no questions asked. Now on Elaine's birthday, we were bringing them home. We pulled into the gravel driveway just after sunset. The porch light was already on. I stepped out first, carrying a small box tied with ribbon. Inside was the deed and the key. Elaine opened the car door slowly, one hand shielding her eyes from the soft glow. "Julia," she said, glancing around. "What?" George stepped out behind her. He was already squinting at the walkway. "This place looks— Wait! Is that our old garden fence?" I nodded. Ryan stood at the front steps, grinning. "Took me 2 weekends to fix the gate, but it's still sturdy." Elaine's hand flew to her chest. "Julia, what did you do?" I held out the box. "I just wanted you both to come home." She opened the lid. Her fingers brushed the paperwork, then the key. She froze. "You bought it back," she whispered. George looked from the box to the porch. "You really did." I didn't speak. I just wrapped my arms around Elaine, who trembled softly against me. There were no speeches, just a few tears, a quiet porch, and a wind chime that sang like nothing had ever changed. That weekend, we moved in together, all of us. The house had enough room for Lily for Ryan's home office, for George's crossword nook by the kitchen window, and Elaine's herb shelf just below it. Lily picked the smallest bedroom and filled it with books and paper cranes. She drew a new picture every morning. Her favorite was a watercolor of us standing in the backyard, surrounded by oversized tomatoes and birds in flight. I pinned it on the fridge. We rebuilt the garden in early April. I brought home lavender seeds and tomato starters. Elaine brought marigolds. George hauled bags of mulch without complaint. Lily helped with the labels Basil Thyme Snapdragon Hope. Every Saturday morning, the kitchen smelled like waffles and butter. Elaine made cinnamon pancakes on Sundays. George read aloud from the paper. Lily did math puzzles at the table with her elbows in syrup. There was laughter. Real laughter. The kind that doesn't need to be rehearsed. Harbor Nest Interiors grew slowly, then all at once. A boutique hotel in Rockport. A wellness studio on the west side. A magazine feature. My desk now faced a wide window with a view of the trees. I kept Lily's drawings in a wooden tray beside my monitor. Her colored pencil sunrises always made the workday softer. One morning, I woke before everyone else. The house was quiet. Dim blue light filled the kitchen. I stepped barefoot across the old wooden floor, poured a mug of coffee, and stood by the back window. The garden was just waking up. A few birds picked along the fence. One of the marigolds had bloomed overnight, wide and gold. Behind me, I heard Lily's footsteps padding down the hallway. She appeared in her oversized sweater, rubbing one eye. "Morning," she mumbled. I knelt and kissed her forehead. "Morning, sunshine." She smiled, then pulled a folded piece of paper from her sleeve. "I made something," she said, "for you." I opened it slowly. It was a drawing of a house. Ours windows, glowing smoke curling from the chimney. 4 stick figures stood out front. One held a coffee cup. One was wearing a garden hat. One was smaller with a book in her hand. And above it in bright block letters she had written, "Home is who stays." I smiled. My throat tightened. I pulled her close. There was nothing left to explain. Some mornings I still wake before the sun. I walk barefoot to the kitchen, pour a quiet cup of coffee, and watch the first light stretch across the floorboards. There's a softness to it, gold at the edges, quiet in the center. This peace didn't come quickly. It didn't come through shouting or revenge. It came piece by piece in small decisions. A no here, a goodbye there, a door that stayed closed even when my hand hovered near the handle. There was a time when I would have done anything for their approval. I shaped my life around silence, around doing the right thing without asking for recognition. I thought if I just kept showing up, they'd eventually see me. But when Lily needed them, when their granddaughter needed them, they didn't just look away. They chose not to see us at all. That kind of silence carves something in you. It reshapes the way you trust. And yet, I still answered when they came back. I didn't do it out of love. I did it out of principle. I gave them the help they needed, but I did it on my terms, not theirs. I watched them walk out of my office without a single look back, and for the first time I didn't feel like the daughter begging to be seen. I felt like someone who had drawn a clear line and stood by it. My family now is the one I built with both hands, the one that came to my side without conditions, the one that sold a home to save a child, the one that plants lavender in the backyard just because she likes the smell. Lily doesn't ask where my parents are. She doesn't ask why Caleb's name never comes up. She just lives. She reads. She draws. She tells me I'm a superhero with mismatched socks. And that's enough. I keep one voicemail saved on my phone. From months ago. My mother's voice tight with panic asking for help. I haven't deleted it. I don't play it either. It sits there like a folded letter. I don't need to open again. Because some stories don't need another chapter, they just need closure. And maybe that's the difference between healing and forgetting. Healing means remembering exactly what happened and still choosing peace. So if you've read this far, I want to ask you something. If the people who once turned their backs on you came knocking asking for help, what would you do? Would you let them back in? Or would you close the door and finally quietly choose yourself?